The sound of engines shattered the quiet morning as three black trucks rolled onto Daniel Harper's gravel driveway without warning. Men in reflective vests stepped out, carrying clipboards and cameras, moving with the confidence of people who believed they owned the place. Daniel stood frozen on his porch, coffee cooling in his hand, trying to understand why strangers were marching across land his family had protected for generations. One man pointed toward the barn, another toward the fence line, marking things down like evidence. This was supposed to be the day he repaired the old irrigation line, not the day outsiders declared control over his property. When Daniel asked what they were doing, a woman in a navy blazer answered calmly that they were acting under authority of the Homeowners Association enforcement team. The words struck him as impossible. His property sat miles beyond the gated subdivision they referenced. Yet their confidence suggested something larger was unfolding. He sensed, even then, that this confrontation would expose a truth no one expected. Daniel walked down the porch steps slowly, forcing calm into his voice while his pulse hammered in his ears. He explained that his farmhouse and fields had been in his family for 50 years, long before the nearby development existed. The woman in the blazer, who introduced herself as HOA President Linda Carver, barely glanced at him before presenting a violation notice. It claimed unauthorized structures, fencing irregularities, and landscaping violations that required immediate compliance. Neighbors from down the road had begun gathering along the fence, whispering and watching like spectators at an unfolding drama. Daniel felt the weight of their eyes and the heavier weight of confusion pressing against his chest. Linda spoke with rehearsed authority, insisting their jurisdiction extended to all properties adjacent to the subdivision boundaries. Daniel knew that was not true, yet doubt flickered inside him. Had zoning lines changed? Had the county redrawn maps without notice? As the men began measuring his fence, he realized this confrontation was far from over. Within minutes, stakes were being driven into the soil Daniel had tilled since childhood. Bright tape fluttered in the morning breeze, marking imaginary boundaries as if his land were already claimed. Linda directed her team with precise gestures, never once asking permission. Daniel's hands tightened into fists at his sides, not from anger alone but from disbelief at how quickly authority could be assumed without proof. He retrieved the old survey documents from a drawer inside the farmhouse, papers yellowed with time but stamped and sealed by the county decades earlier. When he presented them, Linda barely glanced before dismissing them as outdated. Her tone remained polite, but her words carried finality. The men began photographing his barn and workshop, documenting what they called violative structures. Daniel felt the past and present colliding, family history against bureaucratic certainty. He knew the truth was on his side, yet truth alone seemed powerless against official clipboards and confident voices. He reached for his phone, realizing this moment required more than argument. The county records office opened at 9, and Daniel placed the call the second his watch ticked over. He explained the situation while watching strangers pace across his pasture. The clerk paused, asked for parcel numbers, then fell silent as she searched. Each passing second felt stretched thin by uncertainty. Meanwhile, Linda's crew began marking sections of his land for what she described as compliance adjustments. Daniel asked them to stop until jurisdiction was confirmed, but they continued, insisting they were acting within HOA authority. The neighbors' murmurs grew louder. Some shook their heads in sympathy, others seemed curious, drawn to the spectacle. Daniel felt a strange loneliness standing on land filled with people yet stripped of control. Finally, the clerk returned to the line. Her tone shifted from routine to concerned. She told him to remain calm and said a county survey officer would come immediately. Daniel ended the call, realizing that whatever happened next would determine the future of everything he owned. By late morning, the sun burned through the mist, casting sharp shadows across the fields as a county vehicle pulled onto the dirt road. The survey officer stepped out carrying equipment and a worn leather case, his expression neutral but attentive. Linda approached him first, presenting documents and speaking with confident urgency. Daniel watched as the officer listened, then requested parcel coordinates and subdivision filings. He set up his tripod near the fence line, adjusting lenses and sighting markers with careful precision. The entire property seemed to hold its breath. Minutes passed. The officer walked the boundary, checking markers buried decades earlier. He brushed dirt away from an iron pin and nodded slightly. As if recognizing an old truth hidden beneath the soil, Linda's certainty began to soften, replaced by a tightness around her eyes. The gathered neighbors leaned closer, sensing the moment tipping toward revelation. Daniel felt hope rising cautiously, like sunlight breaking through storm clouds, but he knew the final word had not yet been spoken. The officer returned to the driveway and removed his hat, glancing between Linda and Daniel before speaking. His voice carried the steady authority of someone accustomed to settling disputes rooted in land and law. He explained that Daniel's parcel existed outside the HOA's recorded jurisdiction and had never been annexed into the subdivision boundaries. Linda's posture stiffened. She requested clarification, pointing to maps her association relied upon. The officer examined them briefly before noting they displayed planning zones, not legal jurisdiction lines. A quiet ripple passed through the onlookers. The stakes in Daniel's soil suddenly looked absurd, markers of a claim that never existed. Linda's team began gathering their equipment, their earlier confidence replaced by subdued efficiency. Daniel watched in silence, relief mixing with exhaustion. The officer handed Daniel a printed confirmation and advised him to keep copies accessible. As the trucks prepared to leave, Linda paused, her expression caught between frustration and reluctant acceptance. By afternoon, the graveled driveway was quiet again, as if the morning's intrusion had been a passing storm. The stakes were removed, the tape gone, and Daniel's land returned to the stillness it had always known. He stood beside the old fence, running his hand across weathered wood, feeling a renewed connection to the generations who had defended this ground before him. Neighbors drifted away, murmuring about jurisdiction, authority, and the importance of knowing one's rights. The county officer's confirmation rested safely inside Daniel's kitchen drawer, a simple document carrying enormous reassurance. Linda's convoy disappeared down the road, leaving behind only tire tracks and a lesson carried on the warm afternoon breeze: authority without verification holds no power over truth. Daniel returned to repairing his irrigation line, the rhythm of ordinary life restored, yet the morning's events lingered as a reminder to stand firm when certainty is challenged, and that was the final twist in this unbelievable HOA story. If you love the drama, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment sharing your thoughts. It really helps this channel grow.